In the rugged, rolling hills of the Palatinate forest, where ancient castles punctuate a landscape of slopes and dense woodland, stands a city, Kaiserslautern. And at its very heart, perched proudly atop the commanding Betzenberg Hill, is a stadium. For generations, this stadium, and the club it houses, FC Kaiserslautern, has been more than just a stadium. It's been a symbol, a beacon of regional pride, a crucible of passion, and a testament to the raw, resilient spirit of its people. This is a club steeped in history, its roots intertwined with the very fabric of German football itself. It's the spiritual home of the legendary Fritz Walter, captain of the 1954 World Cup winning Miraculous Bern team, a man whose name is revered in German sport. Their traditions run deep, their identity unshakable. They were, and still are, a fearsome force on their home turf, known for their relentless fight and their never-say-die attitude. A loyal, fervent fan base that would follow them through thick and thin. For decades, they were a Bundesliga staple, occasionally excelling but rarely truly dominating the highest echelons of German football. They were the plucky outsiders, respected but never truly feared by the likes of Bayern Munich. But then, as the 1990s dawned, a new era began to unfold across Germany. The nation itself was on the cusp of seismic change, reunification, tearing down old political and social barriers, ushering in a period of optimism and uncertainty. And in this moment of profound national transformation, a small, unfancied club from the southwest, nestled in the heart of the Palatinate forest, would seize their own destiny, defying logic and expectation to etch their name into the pantheon of German footballing legends. Not once, but twice. What if I told you that in a league dominated by titans like Bayern Munich, Werder Bremen, the financial might of Hamburg, and the rising power of Borussia Dortmund, a team that had finished a wholly unremarkable 12th just the previous season, a team with a modest budget and a squad of hard-working, often overlooked players, would rise against all odds to claim the ultimate prize? What if I told you that this improbable triumph would be followed by not sustained glory, but a heartbreaking rollercoaster descent, a spiral of financial peril and sporting heartbreak that would test the very soul of the club, pushing it to the brink of extinction and forcing its loyal faithful to confront the unimaginable? This is the captivating, brutal story of FC Kaiserslautern, a saga that encompasses the pursuit of joy, of unexpected glory, the unforgiving reality of football's commercial machine, and the enduring, unbreakable resilience of a community utterly unified by a shared identity and an unwavering love for their team. This is the tale of Kaiserslautern, who climbed mountains, then fell to earth, fighting for their very existence. To truly grasp the seismic shock and the sheer improbability of Kaiserslautern's triumph, we must first cast our mind back to the preceding years. While always a deeply respected club with a fierce regional following, ingrained in the local culture, Kaiserslautern had by the 1980s become the quintessential mid-table Bundesliga side. They were competitive, they were tough, particularly at their intimidating home ground. It was a place where opponents often buckled under the sheer intensity of the crowd. But title challengers, few, if any, would have put a single Deutschmark on it. In the preceding 89-90 season, they finished 12th, closer to the relegation zone than to European qualification. They were stable, yes, but hardly sparking fear across the league. The summer of 1990, however, brought a subtle but ultimately significant change in leadership. At the helm arrived Karl-Heinz Feldkamp, a no-nonsense, pragmatic manager known for his meticulous preparation, his unwavering discipline, and his ability to forge tight-knit, utterly committed units. He was a shrewd, analytical tactician who believed implicitly in hard work, defensive solidity, and direct, incisive attacking football. He had a clear vision for the squad, even if it wasn't immediately apparent to the wider German footballing public, who largely saw his appointment as uninspired. The squad Feldkamp inherited was not by any stretch of the imagination a collection of global superstars or high-priced transfers. Instead, it was a finely tuned blend of experienced German campaigners and astute, often overlooked foreign signings who fit his precise tactical mould. Leading the line was Stefan Kuntz, the prolific striker, a true goalscorer with powerful physical presence and an uncanny ability to sniff out chances, and an insatiable desire to find the back of the net. Arriving from Uerdingen, he would become the team's top scorer. Alongside him, providing relentless pressure and tireless movement, was Bruno Labbadia, a tenacious and energetic forward whose boundless work rate, constant pressing and intelligent link-up play complemented Kuntz perfectly, creating chaos for opposition defences. Anchoring the defence was Miroslav Kadlec, the elegant Czech international, a rock at the back who brought calm authority and exceptional reading of the game, and a surprising grace for a central defender. He was the brains of the backline. In midfield was Thomas Dooley, the American midfielder, A powerhouse with incredible stamina, he possessed a vital ability to break up opposition attacks with robust tackles and then drive forward with purposeful runs, knitting together defence and attack. Providing the creative spark from wide areas was Bjarne Goldbeck, the Danish winger whose pace, flair, trickery and pinpoint crossing ability unlocked stubborn defences. In goal, the veteran Gerard Ehrmann, a club legend whose commanding presence, no-nonsense approach and crucial, often spectacular saves provided an impenetrable last line of defence, his bellowing instruction echoing across the pitch. Supported by the versatile and hard-working Marcus Schupp in midfield, who was crucial for winning second balls and distributing play, and a solid, if unflashy, backline featuring Reinhard Stumpf and Roger Lutz, Feldkamp had built a unit greater than the sum of its parts. When the 1990-91 season kicked off, what followed was a narrative that would quickly captivate German football. Kaiserslautern didn't just start well, they exploded out of the blocks with an almost unprecedented intensity. Their direct, high-energy football, meticulously drilled by Feldkamp, combined with a sturdy defensive shape, proved incredibly effective, catching opponents off guard. They were fast, fearless and utterly committed to a singular vision. They outran, outfought and outsmarted teams with far greater resources. The Betzenberg was an impenetrable fortress, a place where visiting teams arrived, sometimes already defeated by the sheer noise and pressure. Opponents found themselves suffocated by Kaiserslautern's relentless pressing and overwhelmed by their swift counterattacks. Stefan Kuntz was in truly inspired form, finding the net with uncanny regularity and a deadly precision that belied his often bruising style. Labadia's work rate was exemplary, constantly harassing defenders and creating vital pockets of space. The collective outweighed any individual brilliance of their rivals. It was a team functioning as a single, synchronised unit. Doubts were raised after Kaiserslautern were thrashed 4-0 by Bayern Munich, but the team bounced back in style, winning 3 on the bounce and scoring 12 goals in the process. But following 2 defeats away at St. Pauli and Karlsruhe in their next 3 games, and 2 home draws against Wottenschied and Fortuna Düsseldorf, the belief that this was a flash in the pan grew stronger. However, the remarkable resilience of the team was undiminished. They would claim 7 points in their next 3 games, going into the break leaving them perched at the top of the table as the cold winds of winter swept across the Palatinate. Pundits who had initially scoffed at their early form, dismissing it as a temporary blip, now scrambled for explanations. Was it a fluke? An anomaly that would surely correct itself? Surely the perennial giants of German football, Bayern Munich with their seemingly endless supply of star players, or Werder Bremen under the legendary Otto Regal, would eventually assert their dominance. But Kaiserslautern, impervious to the growing whispers of doubt and the mounting weight of expectation, kept their unwavering focus. Feldkamp meticulously prepared for each game, leaving no stone unturned, never allowing complacency to creep into his squad. His approach was disarmingly simple yet devastatingly effective. Work harder, be more organised, and ruthlessly capitalise on every single opportunity that arises. There were no grand pronouncements, no boastful claims, just quiet, resolute determination emanating from every player. The squad embraced his philosophy, understanding that their strength lay in the unity of their collective effort. A truly crucial victory came in March, a pulsating 2-1 win at home against reigning champions Bayern Munich. It was a game that sent a clear, unequivocal message reverberating across Germany. This was no flash in the pan. This team was for real. They held their nerve through challenging periods, bouncing back from setbacks with characteristic resilience, never allowing a defeat to derail their momentum. The team was a perfectly cohesive unit, a true collective that understood their individual strength and played to them flawlessly. Their style was often direct, but they were relentlessly effective, a truly formidable force. As the final weeks of the season arrived, the tension was palpable. Kaiserslautern held a narrow, precarious lead over Bayern after an imperious, undefeated streak lasting 14 matches before losing to Borussia Mönchengladbach in the penultimate game of the season. Accumulation of this extraordinary journey came on the final match day in May '91. Kaiserslautern faced FC Köln. A win, or even a draw if Bayern Munich didn't win their game, would secure the title. The entire city of Kaiserslautern was gripped by a feverish excitement, a blend of breathless hope and outright disbelief that this moment was truly upon them. The atmosphere at the Betzenberg was electric, charged with decades of longing. Kaiserslautern, playing with nerves of steel and their characteristic intensity, secured a comfortable 6-2 victory over Köln, a performance fitting of champions. As the final whistle blew, the roar that erupted from the stands was deafening, a visceral release of decades of pent-up hope and longing. Kaiserslautern, supposed minnows, 12th place finishers the year before had done it. They were the champions of Germany. The streets of Kaiserslautern exploded into a joyous, chaotic sea of red. Tens of thousands of fans poured out of the stadium and onto the streets, celebrating a triumph that felt almost surreal, a dream made real. This wasn't just a football title, it was a victory for the underdog, for the unbreakable spirit of the Palatinate. It was a moment of pure glory that would forever be etched into the club's illustrious history. A story passed down through generations, a triumph of grit, unwavering unity and a collective belief over the immense financial might of the Bundesliga's perennial elite. For that glorious moment, Kaiserslautern reigned supreme. The euphoria of '91 was intoxicating, a glorious high that seemed destined to last forever, an unbreakable spell. Kaiserslautern, now champions of Germany, looked forward with an immense anticipation to the European Cup, the pinnacle of football on the continent. The following season, they entered Europe's elite competition with hopes soaring, ready to test their mettle against the very best. And in the second round, they faced a formidable challenge, Johan Cruyff's legendary Barcelona dream team, featuring the likes of Stoichkov, Koeman, Laudrup and Pep Guardiola. It was a true clash of footballing philosophies. After a valiant but ultimately unsuccessful 2-0 defeat at the Camp Nou, Kaiserslautern produced a heroic, unforgettable performance at the Betzenberg in the return leg. They stormed to a 3-1 victory on a thunderous night against a team rarely breached. The crowd roared them on, believing in another miracle. Yet in a cruel twist of fate, despite the win, they crashed out on away goals. It was a valiant effort, testament to their fighting spirit, but also a stark glimpse into the brutal realities of top-tier European football, where fine margins and superior quality can often prevail. While they finished a respectable 5th in the league that season, subtle signs of struggling to maintain their peak to compete financially with the European giants were beginning to emerge. Maintaining unexpected success is often harder than achieving it in the first place. The very attributes that propelled Kaiserslautern to their improbable title, a close-knit squad with few superstars and a unified collective spirit, also made them inherently vulnerable to the increasingly commercialised world of European football. Clubs with bigger budgets came calling for their standout performers, offering wages and opportunities that Kaiserslautern simply couldn't match. Stefan Kuntz, their talismanic striker, departed in '95 in a significant blow. Over the next few seasons, other instrumental figures moved on, while replacements were brought in, often with substantial transfer fees. The unique, almost magical chemistry that had defined the '91 team began to dissipate. Slowly but surely, the club was beginning to lose its identity, chasing a financial model that it couldn't sustain. The decline was gradual at first, but almost imperceptible to the casual observer, then accelerated dramatically. The 95-96 season was, by any measure, a disaster. Despite miraculously reaching the German Cup final, their league form was truly abysmal, a shocking contrast. The team struggled desperately for consistency. The famed defensive solidity eroded under pressure, and the Betzenberg, while still loud, couldn't prevent the seemingly inevitable. The once unshakable belief of the fans was replaced by a gnawing anxiety. On the final day of the 95-96 season, Kaiserslautern found themselves facing the unimaginable. They were officially relegated for the first time in their storied history. The shock was profound, the heartbreak palpable across the city and throughout German football. It was an almost cruel and cosmic twist of fate that just a week later, in an act of bittersweet defiance, they would lift the German Cup. A glorious cup win, but one deeply tainted by the ignominy of relegation. It was a bizarre, unprecedented moment in football history, a relegated cup winner. But Kaiserslautern, ever the Phoenix Club, possessed an innate, almost stubborn resilience that defied logic. In a move that would become legendary, they appointed Otto Rehagel, a manager with a formidable reputation, previously at the helm of Bayern Munich and who'd been controversially sacked by them just weeks earlier. Rehagel, a demanding and shrewd tactician, kept the core of the talented squad together and, crucially, instilled a new, unyielding winning mentality. They dominated the German second tier, securing promotion back to the top flight at the very first attempt in '97, a swift return to what they believed was their rightful place. And then, in one of the most astonishing, almost unbelievable seasons in football history, newly promoted Kaiserslautern, under Rehal's masterful guidance, did it again. They won the Bundesliga in '98, becoming the first, and to this day, only promoted team to ever achieve such a miraculous feat. It was testament to Rehal's tactical genius, the experience of players like Andreas Bremer, the prolific goal scoring of Olaf Marschall, and the explosive emergence of a young, dynamic midfielder named Michael Ballack, who would go on to become a global superstar. They replicated the spirit of '91, but with an added layer of experience and a point to prove. This was an incredible underdog story, perhaps even more unique than the first, a testament to the club's extraordinary and unique spirit. The celebrations that followed in '98 were just as wild. perhaps even more so, given the utterly unique context of a newly promoted side winning the title. The club had once again defied all conventional wisdom, cementing their place as the ultimate Davids in a league of Goliaths. But this second triumph, while unequivocally glorious, marked a subtle but insidious shift in the club's trajectory. The relentless pursuit of continued success, of trying to compete financially with the growing might of clubs like Bayern and Borussia Dortmund, in an escalating economic arms race, led to decisions that would ultimately prove ruinous. Ambition, unchecked by prudence, began to sow the seeds of future despair. The late 90s and early 2000s saw a period of ambitious, perhaps overly ambitious investment at Kaiserslautern. Flush with 2 Bundesliga titles in 7 years and a rapidly growing international profile, the club's leadership sought to cement its place amongst the elite. They invested heavily in player transfers, often on inflated wages, signing established names and chasing new talent. Critically, and perhaps most detrimentally, they poured immense funds into expanding and modernising their stadium in preparation for the 2006 World Cup. A strategic move that would also become a catastrophic financial burden. The fundamental problem was that this ambition, while noble in its intent, far outstripped the underlying financial realities of their ability to generate consistent top-tier revenue. The club was quite simply living beyond its means, betting heavily on continued sporting success and the associated influx of millions that never consistently materialised. The stadium expansion, while creating a magnificent, state-of-the-art arena befitting of a World Cup, also saddled the club with an astronomical debt and a crippling annual rent payment to the city, which, in a desperate move, had taken ownership of the ground to secure financing. It was a deal that would haunt them for decades. Transfers that looked promising on paper often didn't pan out as expected. High-profile, expensive signings like Yuri Djorkaeff or the eccentric Mario Basler, while immensely talented, were past their prime or struggled to integrate, and their exorbitant wages were symptomatic of a flawed strategy, trying to compete with the financial might of Bayern's FC Hollywood era on a far thinner shoestring. The spending and increasingly opaque financial structure led to a widespread accusation of financial irregularities, with revelations of hidden payments and alleged tax evasion that resulted in hefty fines from the German Football Association, further compounding their dire woes and damaging their reputation. The overall squad quality declined significantly as star players left and replacements failed to ignite. Their once unbreakable team unity fractured, and the results suffered dramatically. In 2006, the unthinkable of unthinkables happened again. Kaiserslautern, the club that had only once been relegated and famously returned to win the title the following year, dropped back into the second tier. This time, however, the feeling among fans and within the club was profoundly different. It wasn't just heartbreak, it was a deep, unsettling, almost existential dread, chilling sense of impending doom. A decade-long fight for survival. Kaiserslautern spent 4 arduous years in the second tier, before miraculously achieving promotion back to the Bundesliga in 2010. There was a brief flicker of hope, collective sigh of relief, a widespread belief that they were finally back where they belonged, ready to reclaim their former glory. But it was fleeting, another false dawn. After a surprisingly respectable 7th place finish in their first season, they tragically plummeted back to the very bottom of the table the next season, and were heartbreakingly relegated again in 2012. This time, immediate return to the Bundesliga never materialised. The financial problems festered and grew. Successive management teams grappled desperately with the enormous, seemingly insurmountable debt, selling off assets, frantically cutting costs, and even resorting to fan donations, but they never truly found a sustainable long-term path. The once proud Betzenberg, capable of holding nearly 50,000 passionate fans, now seemed eerily cavernous, and the cripplingly high rent to the city continued to be a suffocating, almost unbearable burden, bleeding the club dry. In 2018, Kaiserslautern were relegated to the 3rd tier of German professional football. This was a crushing, almost fatal blow. A club steeped in the very deepest history of the German game was now facing the grim, humiliating reality of playing against teams often with significantly smaller fan bases and budgets. Yet remarkably, attendances, despite the despair, remained incredibly high for the 3rd tier, a profound testament to the unwavering, almost superhuman loyalty of the fan base. But loyalty alone, as is evident, couldn't pay the bills. The decades of financial mismanagement, coupled with rapidly dwindling revenues from lower league football, brought the club to an absolute precipice. The arrival of the pandemic in early 2020 delivered the final, brutal blow, pushing an already teetering giant over the edge. With stadiums suddenly empty, crucial matchday revenue streams choked off, and sponsors withdrawing, Kaiserslautern, already on life support, was forced to file for insolvency in June 2020. For many, within the club and among its ardent supporters. It felt like the definitive end for a glorious yet ultimately tragic era. How could a club, burdened by millions in historical debt, survive such a catastrophe? The very existence of Kaiserslautern hung by the thinnest of threads. The bankruptcy proceedings, while a profoundly dark chapter in the club's history, also ignited a spark of something extraordinary, an almost defiant resilience within the Kaiserslautern community. The fans, the true heart and soul of the club, rallied behind with a passion that defied logic. They bought bonds, they donated generously, they supported in unprecedented numbers, refusing to let their beloved club die. Through a monumental effort and painful financial restructuring, the club miraculously managed to stabilise its perilous situation, navigating the treacherous waters of insolvency thanks to its vital investment and a radical overhaul of the fiscal model. After 4 incredibly challenging, nail-biting seasons in the third tier, Kaiserslautern, showing that familiar fighting spirit, earned a hard-fought promotion back to the second tier. It wasn't the Bundesliga title, but it was monumental. A life-saving step back from the abyss, a testament to the collective will to survive. The stadium roared once more with the sound of genuine, hard-won triumph. Since their emotional return to the second tier, Kaiserslautern has been on a slow but determined path of rebuilding and recovery. They faced challenges, battled relegation scares, and undergone managerial changes. But crucially, they've survived and have begun to consolidate their position. They recently reached the final of the German Cup in 23-24, a proud return to a major final, that they ultimately lost to an unbeaten Bayer Leverkusen. The story of Kaiserslautern is a unique, compelling and deeply human one. It's a testament to the intoxicating allure of unexpected triumph and devastating consequences from unchecked ambition and financial recklessness, and the extraordinary, almost miraculous power of a community to save its cherished institution from the brink. The 91 Bundesliga title, and the equally surprising 98 repeat, remain their defining moments of unparalleled glory, shining beacons in their history. But their journey since, the dramatic fall from grace, the desperate fight against bankruptcy and their slow climb back from the abyss, is perhaps an even more profound and inspiring testament to the enduring, unbreakable spirit of Kaiserslautern and their beloved Betzenberg Stadium. It's a reminder that even when all seems lost, passion and perseverance can find a way. If you like underdog stories and football with a soul, hit like and subscribe. Which Bundesliga title do you think was the most impressive? Let us know in the comments below. And in the meantime, stay tuned for more football history, one incredible story at a time.